All right, what's up, patrons? Thank you for your continued support and patience, man. I know I ain't been around. Just been, I guess you're just stressing in all ways, really. Been kind of nonstop. I haven't had really the time to even sit down and talk or really write anything down to kind of like organize my thoughts to tell somebody else about what I'm going through. Just been kind of going through it. So, yeah, it's kind of about it, man. Just been adjusting to Germany for the last, it'll be 3 weeks tomorrow, I think, that I've been here. Or Thursday, 3 weeks Thursday that I've been in Germany. So, just been adjusting to that 9 hour time difference from where I was coming from. Because I was in California, and then I had a friend of mine, he was going to be watching the dogs at my place, and then the timing didn't work out with his job, so then I had to, like, he came out to stay with me or whatever to watch him, but then I just ended up having to drive to Texas to leave my dogs with him, and then from Texas to Germany. So it's just been kind of nonstop. So the last 4 weeks have just been constant movement. It's not really been any time to really talk about what's going on personally or in the world or what I see happening, and to even just untangle some of the thoughts or the awareness that is there already. So thank you guys for support me on Patreon, patreon.com/Taylor Durden, patreon.com/Taylor Durden. So yeah, man, thank you guys for joining me, man. Another day, another dollar. So, man, it's the crazy thing with the time zone shit too, because I feel like my awareness is just not in the time zone that I'm presently in. Like, as much as I try to adjust the circadian rhythm to this place, is like my awareness is just like, nah, you know what I mean? Like, my heart is in another place. Like, I'm just really in the Americas. You know what I mean? Honestly, like, it's hard to even to go to bed, because it's like if I'm up right now, most people are just getting up on the East Coast, and then where I was living on the West Coast, everybody's still asleep, or maybe if they're really early risers, they'd be up, and then it's just so, like, the people that I know or care about, and the things that I care about, they're all on the West Coast. My friend O is watching my property while I'm gone. So later today, we'll be doing a podcast, and that'll be on the Patreon as well. So it'll be a two for today. Get two things going today, and he always brings up pretty cool questions and things that, obviously, as an individual, I'm just not thinking about asking myself certain questions like that. So it's always nice to get the other perspective, and you guys can ask questions at any time in this if you feel like it. So I guess it's always easier to talk about shit that I've been going through in a lot of respects than maybe the things that I wanted to talk about that I made note of over the past month of just moving around. Cause like I don't know, I just be witnessing people's everything really boiling down to people's identity, whatever, what they identify with as being, who they are, what they are. I'm in Germany playing ball, by the way, playing football in Germany, outside of Munich. So, I was watching somebody really, like, I feel like their identity, like, it's something that I can relate to at some level, because I've seen, like, a vacancy in my own life. But, I guess it just would sound like a common theme for me, things that I've brought up before as far as identity goes, and, like, where you're investing your energy. It's really going to all boil down to your identity. So, like, I was watching this lady. She was she's an older woman, and she just was, I was just watching her behavior, and I was just like, damn, this is crazy, like, where it's at, like, the type of attention that people want, people, Cause I just was, she's like 60, and the way she was behaving, I was like, wow, she just really feels unseen. You know what I mean? And that's why I made the post. I was like, man, you feel unseen when you're not in touch with the unseen. Like, I just felt like her problems and the things that she has a problem with in life, like she she only she only identifies with, I guess, the human level, whether it be emotion or thoughts. Like, so all her problems, like, if they can't be solved by human thought and emotion, then they're out of her ability to navigate. And I just feel like so much of that is just not being in touch with that part of you that is one with the one that's one with all, if that makes sense. So I just felt like, there's she was rejecting that humility within herself to be able to connect to, the awareness within her that could invoke the strength or invoke the will, what have you, to navigate, different problems in her life. So much of it is like people don't want to ask for that. They don't want to say, some people do. Some people will say, like, look, God give me the strength, or God give me the steadfastness or the patience or whatever. However they identify, however they word it. I mean, it's very important the way you word it, the names you use, all of that stuff is important. But in order to make this a more universal point, I guess I'll stick to the words I'm using right now. But I just I was witnessing that for days on end, like the amount of strife I felt like she was going through, and so much of it was just like, I was like, man, it's a wild thing. Like, I seen, like, the situation was one where, like, I feel like people want the kind of attention that they get when they're new. Like, you get into a relationship and it's like you're new to somebody and you just want to stay new, but you're only new one time. And so it's like, once you're no longer new, you have to just continue to evolve, and then, at that point you get to witness yourself again. It's like you're in touch with the unseen parts of you, and then you have your own attention. It's like, if you're not in your purpose and stuff, like, you're not even really there. You're not even really present. So you're not even really bringing yourself to what you're experiencing at that point. Like, you're kind of just dormant inside yourself while your body is going through motions. And so, like, I felt like I was trying to break it down to, like, the three types of men, I guess, that exist, that are available for a woman in a lot of respects. Because she had a man that, like, loved her, wanted to be with her and everything, and, like, he pays for the house that she lived in and everything. And but she left him, I think, because it just wasn't entertaining. The shit wasn't entertaining enough. Like, she be wanting that entertainment. She wants that. And so it's like, you either gonna get a guy that's gonna work for the things the objects that you want, or you're gonna get a person that has a lot of time for you. So if they have all that time, they're not gonna be spending their time working for objects. Or you're gonna get somebody that, like, it's like a wild situation, because, like, you can either dominate somebody and, like, control them, or get certain attention from them. Like, she had went on a trip. To Southeast Asia, and she just went there with a guy that she don't really respect him. She just wanted to go on a trip to Southeast Asia and get attention. It felt like a status thing, I guess. I don't know how you can enjoy a trip with someone that you don't even really admire. So it's like, you got this wealthy person that can give you objects, but you don't want his attention. Or someone that is not going to give you, they can give you more attention, but then they're not going to have the time to get you the objects. Or you just have somebody that's just, like, kind of like a mule, that they're going to work all the time, and, they're just going to be a mule at that point for you. They're not going to, it's just like a human wallet in a sense. And so then it's like, I could see she wanted certain attention from the man that she was with, but he was just working all the time. But she wasn't willing to make the concessions as far as objects. So she left him, and then it's like now you just with people that have money, but you don't want their attention. And then it's like the people that do have the time for you, you judge them because the objects that they can provide for you don't measure up to what your standards are, what have you. And I was just like, damn, this is a wild situation because I know a lot of people are going through this. I think when you look at Europe in a lot of ways, it kind of shows you a lot of the way of the world, like because a lot of the trends are coming out of there as far as the whole pride movement, women murdering babies, certain things, like America didn't allow baby murdering until 1972. America was really conservative for a longer time. And I feel like Europe has been like kind of progressive and moving towards oblivion for a long time. So like when I look at it, I'm like, damn, this is kind of like the things that American women think they want. A lot of European women already have, and you can just see that so much misery here in that respect. Because I was, you see it in the men and the women. People just not staying together because they're not. The attention isn't the attention they want. They want like that new energy, They don't want to refresh their own energy, recalibrate their own energy. They just want someone else to bring them new attention, energy, and then it's just never gonna add up. It's never gonna bring any contentment. And so I just feel like this is kind of the way of the world as far as like the modern man and the modern woman, where it's at, like how the separation has grown so much because of the entitlements, what people feel like they're entitled to in a relationship or entitled to from life itself. People feel just entitled to certain things, and it's just it's a wild thing. Like the more simple stuff is what's gonna keep you younger and keep refreshing you, and keep invigorating your energy. But people like the complex stuff because it just seems like a status symbol. Like if you were just to turn your yard into a garden, or buy some land, undeveloped land, and turn it into a food garden, it's not going to be flattering. It's not going to be so flat. The whole process isn't going to be so flattering. It's just going to bring contentment. But people like the flattery of things. So I think it makes it almost impossible to have a family, I don't even like using the word family, but to have a union like that, a kindred union, I guess you could say. It's like almost impossible because of what people want. You know what I mean? Like, and I was with this dude. He's the same age as me, a year older than me. He got 3 kids, and his baby mom left him. And I was like, what do they really want? What does she really want, though? Like, how do you have 3 kids with somebody? You should have known after the first one that you was gonna leave. You know what I mean? But you should have known before the first one that you was gonna leave. But this is how you know it's all about energy. It has nothing to do with people really knowing their true identity. You know what I mean? Because they're not in their purpose, so the energy is just rogue. So they just get exhausted. I feel like people just get exhausted, and then they need that external refreshment of energy. They don't know how to really cultivate or balance the energy within themselves. So it's really like it's an uncultured. It's really a lack of culture. And I know a lot of people look at Europe like a cultured place, but I feel like it's just it's a void of culture that creates these desires that manifest in people. You know what I mean? Like, I was at practice last night, and then after practice, guys on the team was drinking, and I was like, how the fuck are you drinking? You know what I mean? Like, after that, how can you feed that to your body? But then it's like the identity, like, so much of it is the identity. It's where you feel like, there's nothing better to do. I shouldn't preserve myself or take care of myself. I shouldn't not hurt myself because what's it matter? And it's an incredibly spoiled way of being. And, it's tough in general. No matter where you go, it's like that, you know what I mean? Like, for the most part. I think when I was living in Africa, though, it was a little bit better because there was that communication system through Islam that they had where I was living, and I don't think Islam is my choice for communication, but I do feel like having a communication system in general that everybody kind of is in really makes the oneness more apparent, and it makes it easier to make the correct decisions. Like when I was living um, in Egypt, it was like the whole country, they get up, they pray together at the same time, they have the same breakfast. And it really becomes not so much about the things or the mechanics of the things, is that they're all doing something together, and their will is, their intent is to align with what created them, or what they, whatever they, what created them. That's their idea. So, I feel like it just not having it creates a vacuum or a void there when that's not there, and so it's like a void inside the person. They never really get in touch with them parts of themselves, and it just creates this false security. You know, that's really the false security. The more external security, the greater the insecurity within grows. I feel like in a lot of respects. Not to say that you can't have means of protection, external means of protection, but I feel like when that becomes the focal, when that is the obsession, then there's really no way to ever feel secure. It's like the Tao Te Ching verse. He was saying like the more weapons you have, the more insecure people will be, and I feel like it's so much projection because people just don't have that communication. They're like spiritually autistic. You know what I mean? You're dealing with people that are pretty much spiritually autistic or metaphysically autistic. They don't know how to communicate with them parts of themselves, and so they're limited to solving their problems with byproducts of consciousness, thoughts and emotions. So, I look at the families and I just see like what they care about. I look at a family and it's like, you might care about your vanity. You might care about what TV shows, or you might care about certain mechanics. But you don't, like if you actually cared for your environment around you, and you taking care of a garden, and you taking care of each other's clothes, making each other clothes or whatever, what have you, then that's really your culture. You know what I mean? But when the care is not there and everything is outsourced and there's no real communication, like that's why you have like atrocities kind of built into the system. You have like serial killers and people that are by extension mass murderers through bureaucracy and lawfare. People like that, they are built into the system because there's a void there in communication. There's no check or balance there. So it doesn't matter how correct a family might appear. They might appear to be like a happy suburban family or whatever somewhere in the world, and you're just like, I don't know why he did this, or why he overdosed on drugs, or why he hurt that person, or why this or why that. But it's like, because there is really no culture. There's an absence of culture, and culture is pretty much just a communication system, your means of communicating with yourself. And I think when you're dealing with places with more complete languages, I think Germany, they can communicate with, I feel like, certain faculties within themselves because their language is more complete than say English. But there's just parts of the culture that just aren't there. It's just pieces that are missing. It's just like having an outfit that has holes in it. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really protect you. It doesn't really protect you from the elements of the external world. So I see it all the time. You know what I mean? Like I'll be on the trains in Germany and everything, and I just see people, the distaste in people and the discontent in people And I seen this little girl the other day. She was like with her sister and her mom, and the younger one just looked so angry. I was like, how can you be like 3, 4? No way she was over 4. I was like, you walking around, you 4 years old. Like, what can you even really be this angry about? And like, there was like a 7-year-old girl, her sister, and she just seemed pretty moderate. She didn't seem angry or nothing. She seemed pretty balanced. And I was just like, damn, what is she so angry about, really? And I was just like, oh, you know what it is though? It's like certain shit inside herself that she knows that she don't really want to know. So she's trying to like superimpose um, a false knowledge or misinformation on top of her awareness. It's like when people tell you like fasting isn't good for you or something, but then you experience it and then you know it, and then you get sick or something and you're like, oh damn, I had to fast. I know other people might say I need to eat something or do something else, but you're like, I'm gonna do the thing that seems like ideally like this might be the most grueling thing, but it's actually gonna be the greatest experience and more refreshing. So it's like people, they have that innate awareness inside of them. They're all born with it, and some people are more aware of certain things than others, and it's almost like a burden because like whatever you're more aware of, it's like you're here to really remind people of that, and then there's an exchange that happens where you get reminded of the things that are more dormant in you. So then, I'm just seeing this 4-year-old girl. I'm like, she knows something. Maybe she's craving some candy and her mom told her no or something or whatever. But like the true her knows. Her mom's like an external representation of that. That's like denying her, her own self-hate and damage. It's like that's really what self-hate is. It's like I hate that I know this shit. I hate that the true me is there and it knows that shit. So how can I make that go away? And that's when they lean on food and drugs and sex to make that go away, to make that dormant. And so that's why I just feel like the idea of knowing or what knowledge is constantly getting in the way of what the actual awareness of really knowing. And everybody's born with that. Everybody has that. And then the more that people reject it, the further you go down the road, the more atrophy builds. And then you be like 60 years old, pretty much acting like a child because you lost attention from yourself. It's like you went to sleep inside yourself where you're just like, there's nothing really going on out here. I'm not really realizing myself. None of these activities challenge my animal self to realize what created it. So there, I have really no means of experiencing myself or meeting myself to the fullest capacity. So I'm just gonna sleep, inside myself basically while my body goes through these motions. And I really just feel like it's just a desperation that has manifested because of that. You got a lot of people that are just desperate to feel something. But they reject reality at the same time. It's like they know inside themselves innately that they need to actually feel real touch, like real intimacy with themselves, instead of just masturbation, mental masturbation with themselves, emotional masturbation with yourself. It's like kind of like what watching a movie is, or turning music on that you've already heard before. All that shit is like mental mass. It's not real intimacy. It's excessive. You know what I mean? And there's anything excessive is not, it blocks intimacy. There's no way that you can, if you're out to eat with someone, if you were to just binge eat in front of them, there's no way that you can really even stop to connect with the person. The intimacy is already gone because you're being excessive. So people are in the same, they treat themselves that way before they even have the opportunity to treat other people that way. And I guess they also happen simultaneously as well. But so you got people that really, they have a craving to be touched but don't want to be touched. And so it creates the false intimacy, to me, where I feel like that is the weapon of mass destruction in the world. And one life I saw it where I would it's almost like a Venus flytrap, you know what I mean? Like it's attractive for whatever reason. Like, you know, whether it be the colors or the pheromones or whatever that come off of the the Venus flytrap that draws the fly in or bug in or whatever, and then it slowly closes down on the shit or whatever. That's kind of how I feel about false intimacy. It's like you let people in knowing that there's a wall, there's a glass ceiling on where your intimacy can go. So they think that they can go deeper. And then a lot of times people just ignore the signs because they don't want to be intimate with themselves. So they want to get involved with someone that has a barrier in their own intimacy anyway. So I think that that's kind of what's happening universally, where people are like, I'm gonna live by this story. I'm gonna tell you this story up until the point where, like, you're authoring your life, because you're kind of narrating it as you describe it, as you experience it. So then you author your life or whatever, and you're sharing your life with somebody, you know, and you're sharing your body or whatever. But you're never really, you like, it's like if you refuse to write the next scene in the movie, it's like you let them get to a certain point, and it's like a cliffhanger, and you're just like, no, I'm not writing the next thing. I'm living in this part. I'm only living in these first 10 chapters or what have you. I'm never gonna write any more beyond this, and this is basically like a false ending, and I'm no longer really paying attention to life anymore. I'm kind of just living in projection. I'm living in the past. I'm playing music that I heard from the past, and it's just so much rigidity I feel like from that. Playing movies you've seen before, listening to music you've seen before, getting involved with people that you've been involved with before, doing drugs you've done before, all of that. I feel like so much of that stuff like is just not wanting to continue to write more of the story, and just don't want, you just so spoiled that you don't want to pay attention to life. And so I think that you got most people in that delusional loop there because they're in they've succumbed to identifying with their idea of intimacy, like this performative intimacy that they have, you know. It's like, I used to mess with this one chick that, you know, after a certain amount of drinking or smoking or whatever, it was always a threshold that she would reach where she would be like, she would start crying about how she got molested as a kid. And I used to just be like, yeah, you're never going to get over it though. Like, you kind of always like coming back to the same spot. And this is as far as you'll go with the intimacy. It's like performative. It's like, it's now it's a safe place almost. Like the trauma almost became a safe place because you're like, all right, I know this. So, and I don't have to really get better because I can blame someone. I can be a victim. And then on top of that, you know, the body kind of is seized up in the trauma because you continually loop through the memories of the same memories. You're not creating real new memories. I mean, and I think that's just all just a byproduct of not really dreaming at night. Every night you're really just going through memories. You know, whether you want to call them past life memories or parallel lives or whatever. It's all memories. It's not really. You know, I think that's why a lot of the people, you know, you get those dreams where you can't run real fast, or you can't punch real hard, or, you know, whatever stuff like that, is because you're actually just living through a memory that you can't really change, and you just have to see it for what it is and accept it, acknowledge that this is a memory, so that you can trace back the memories and get back to the point of creation of memories, so where you can start creating new memories and actually start realizing the next chapter in the script from the true you, the author, the authoritarian, the all, the gold, AU, the light, the creator, what have you. So I think that the false intimacy, that predetermined threshold of intimacy, is really a dangerous thing, because people really believe that they're letting people in, and it's like, they're just letting them into one room in the house, and then they stay in there and they never really explore their own house. So it's like a restraining order against yourself. And I think the only thing that breaks that up, there's always going to be a trauma reset or a virtue reset. Either you're going to come to some sort of awareness to where you like, I can't just keep projecting that this is the way these results are automatic, or they will be, and I'm going to have to be more virtuous in my life. Or trauma is going to inevitably hit you, and then you might respond from that, or you might go deeper into a shell and be even less intimate and more into the story and the human descriptions of and attachments to those descriptions of the memories you've experienced thus far. So I think it's a bridge to nowhere, you know what I mean? And then you burn all the real bridges in that process, you know what I mean? It's just like I said, it's a deep desperation to be touched, to actually have real intimacy, but you don't want to have it because the false self has no control over reality. It only has control over, doesn't really have control over lies, but it can keep you in the lie as long as you don't expose you and your body to reality, and that's what dreams are, is really reality. That's what heaven is just reality. And the more that you're attached to the false self, the thoughts, the feelings, and everything that stems from the reflection of reality, what this is, which is actually a dream, and not reality, which is heaven, then you're just gonna keep living in desperation. And then it's this constant idea of a lack of success being available to you. Like there's a shortage of success in the world because people are being homogenized, so they're all trying to be the same. And so, there is a shortage of success in that scenario. You can't all be the same. The success is there for who you really are, but if you don't want to be who you really are, then there's always going to be a lack thereof. So then everything becomes a carnivorous reality, where just overly carnivorous. Because again, I do think that some people are supposed to be carnivores. I just don't think it's supposed to be the mass of people. I think that there's always going to be like outliers and people that are like just there to consume what is already dying or what is already dead, and what is already sick, like kind of like an infinite loop of like a trash collection. Like it's always gonna be some amount of people that are like that. I don't think it's supposed to be a mass of people, but I think that that's always going to exist. It just reached a point now where it's become the standard because the world has become enslaved to its false self, and then like a collective false self, which is basically Satan. So, I feel like, because I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they were just like, well, people just need to stop eating this and stop eating that. And I was like, yeah, I think, some people could switch. They could change it. They could. But if you start taking some of these things from people, they're going to get violent, or to themselves or others. A lot of people will, and it's because I think a lot of them are naturally carnivorous. They're naturally destructive entities. They're naturally, because we're in a state of where things need to be destroyed. A lot of things do need to be destroyed. So the spirits or the beings that, the programs that are here to destroy are needed in a lot of respects, because we're in a stage of everything decomposing. So you need maggots to come and personify maggots and personify fungus to process that shit. And it's just that some people are actually really real, and they're not just programs that are just going off of this destructive program that's necessary, and they just caught up in the whirlwind. They're just caught up in the conditioning, and they do have a choice. Whereas some people, they really kind of don't have a choice. They could curb it. They can maybe change it. They could not be excessive. You know, like a carnivore generally isn't excessive. Like a tiger they only kill like twice a month. A crocodile might only kill once a month. You know, some crocodiles and snakes can kill once a year. They're generally not excessive. They really they do it based off necessity most of the time. And I think, you know, if you had the carnivorous people doing only eating exactly what they needed instead of you know, the excess that they've been eating, and then you have the people that are actually real creative beings and not destructive beings, realizing themselves, then that would, you know, give an example, give a template to people that actually do want to realize themselves and realize real true intimacy, to where they could you know, help the people out that are just lost in the program, that actually are creative, you know, or have the creative faculties to where they can have a choice to be autotrophic and be producers instead of leeches, you know. And since we have a world that is, the Slavs have too much control, you know what I mean? Like, at this point, like, I think Slavs should have a control of an area. That should be their area, and then they dominate that area, and where they're supposed to be. It's just like anything, you know, that has a territory, you know, whether it be wolves or whatever it is. Like, if this is their area, you know, you go over there and you're not acting right, you're gonna get eaten, and you know, you're gonna go over there and not act right if you've just been neglecting yourself. You're gonna gravitate towards getting eaten, and then, or you'll go into trauma, survive the trauma, and then now it's like being bit by a vampire, and now you behave like them. So we're in a state of a lack of communication, which is a lack of culture. So there's just a desperation. It's like the communication is thin. When the communication is weak, then it's like not having enough water. It's like you just dehydrating, and you need moisture, you need hydrogen, like you need that. And so now you're just desperate for the water. Now you're drinking, you know, water out of random streams or whatever. So that's kind of where we are with intimacy. And I think that being in that survival mode has burned all the bridges. Because, you know, if you experiencing lack to where you really feel like your family is threatened, then yeah, you're going to be like, look, I'm getting mine. My family has to, you know, I can't let my kids die. I won't be able to live with myself, what have you. So that people are just operating out of that default, and then that just burns so many bridges. The survival mode burns the bridges, and then burning the bridges begets the survival mode. Because the more bridges you burn, the more isolated you are, and then the more you're in survival mode. So it's just a wild thing, man. And I think, again, all of it is fear. You know, if you're not content, it's really just contentment or fear. I don't really, you know, because contentment and appreciation kind of go hand in hand. It's like one. And that's all coming off of virtue, you know, patience and steadfastness, due diligence, prudence. You know, that's all coming off of virtue. And that produces the contentment and the gratitude, and it really it's like you're either living virtuously and then experiencing contentment and gratitude, or you're just living in fear and then you experience scarcity. And I just feel like we're kind of in that trap, generally speaking, especially with social media. I feel like it exacerbated the trap, really, because I think the amount of judgment that goes on in the world, and where the judgment comes from, because I think judgment is necessary in a sense. Like everybody has a judgment faculty, you know. Like if you have poor judgment, then you get involved with, you know, poor people, whether it's you know, integral wealth, or whatever. People that are just not have no integrity. That's if you don't have good judgment, then yeah, you're gonna get involved in things that erode your integrity. So I'm not saying that judgment itself is a bad thing. I just think that where the judgment comes from, it's like if a jester judged you, or a peasant judged you, instead of like the king judging you. And I mean that within yourself. I mean that like as metaphor for the Lord of all lords within you and around you. No separation really, but the judgment's not coming from that place. The judgment's coming from lower rungs, lower faculties within the system that really they're not in position to judge. It's just like how it is in the world. It is all expressed itself. We kind of live in a game. So you look at the Supreme Court. You look at any of the Supreme Court of Brazil. You look at any of the Supreme Courts in the world. You're like, these people should not be the judges. They should not be determining the standard of law and the quality of law. They're not versed in actual, original law. They're versed in some law. They have some awareness, but their integrity really isn't there. And so, we have an external expression of a lack of judgment through the court system, and then we have an internal, reality where the judgment is coming from the wrong place. Now, you got people, it's like a kangaroo court. You got kangaroo judges basically inside yourself. It's like if you let your elbow decide what tastes good or what's healthy for your liver, or if you let your toe determine what's healthy for your spleen. Everything is everything, but I'm just saying there's an order there, and that there has to be a trickle down in a sense, where the Lord is I don't want to say on the top. It's really the sea. It's the source. So it's kind of the underneath everything. It has leverage underneath everything. Leverage is below, so it's underneath everything. Like it's underneath the facade of all things. So that has to be the way the order goes. Like the core is the truth, and that's what should be determining the judgment. But the facade is doing too much judgment at this point. So I feel like the people, first of all, they're judging from the wrong place. So then the real judge within them, the real Lord within them, judges them for judging. So then that just exacerbates, the problem. So then they perpetuate it too even more. Again, they want to turn that voice off. They want to turn the acknowledgement of that presence off. So that's why social media is a devastating tool. The weapon of mass destruction that is social media is devastating as far as judgment, because you have most people at this point ridiculing people. They show their hand at the same time. It's a ridicule that comes down like you're judging them based on whatever your fear of judgment is. Like if you don't want people, if you never want to be weak in a certain way, then you attack people that you perceive as being weak in those ways that you're scared of being weak. And it's like such a misconstrued way of trying to control the inside through the outside. Like if somebody's weak in some way, if I attack them for being weak in that way, then that somehow makes me strong in that way that I'm attacking them or judging them. It's like, this person's ugly in some way or shape or form. And now that's going to make me more attractive or more beautiful because I'm trying to distance myself by attacking them, which is the opposite actually. The opposite effect happens. You're exposing what you're really afraid of. It's like, oh man, I don't really like this person's hair or whatever. And then you expose that you're afraid of certain things involving yourself and being judged in certain ways. Like you're only going to insult people based on ways that you're afraid of being insulted. And insults in general are not the truth. The truth is never an insult. you're only insulted by the truth if you're attached to something that's not true. If you have a false identity as your judge, and then somebody says the truth to you, then the false identity is going to incorrectly judge the truth. And then as you hold on to that identity, you're going to suffer. So it's never, the truth never hurts. It's holding on to the lie that hurts, obviously. So the truth is never an insult. So when people are insulting other people or ridiculing other people, they're just telling on themselves how afraid they are of being insulted in the ways that they're insulting others. And it's just exposing how non-intimate they are with themselves and how they refuse to be gentle with themselves in whatever area that they're insecure. So it's really it's all stemming from the desperation that comes from the lack of real intimacy, you know. And so much of it is like, it's like a fear of breaking up with, like, the loyalty to the false self and the fear of breaking up with the false self. And then it bleeds into the relationships. I feel like people don't want to break up because they're afraid, because that's just the opposite of being content. So I can't be in a relationship with somebody that's afraid to break up. That's afraid to break up with the false self. They have a greater loyalty to their false self than they have a greater loyalty to who they think I should be or who they think we are, instead of who we are and what we actually are. They're not really seeing things objectively. So that clouds it all. And then I feel like sex ruins that. The objective view, it ruins it. And that's why I haven't had sex in almost a year now, and I don't know when I'm ever going to do it again, because I feel like it really is destructive if it's done wrong. And generally speaking, it's being done wrong, because it's emotionally abusive to the body to activate the creative faculties like that, or the whole body. And the body is creation in a lot of respects. So the body is law. It's a manifestation of law. So like, the same way like water sinks, fire clings, you know, the body is an expression of all the elements. So every organ is an expression of the elements that's expressing law. And when the body, like, you can't beat the law is infallible. So when the body is subjected to certain behaviors, the law and the whole process of judgment has to unfold. The punishment has to unfold, you know, rewards, protection, all of that has to unfold based on certain behaviors, because the body only operates on law. And so people aren't aware of the laws that the body adheres to or that the body is embodying. So they suffer. We suffer because of that. You know, it's the same way different parts of the body don't touch other parts of the body, and why different parts of the body have a different arrangement of skin. Because the body, everything is skin. Every organ is skin. The eyes are skin. They all have different patterns. The cells within those different parts of the body are just different patterns. And this part of the body don't touch this part of the body. And there's like a middleman of communication so that the communication can remain smooth for different parts of the body. Like, you put something in your system and it has to go through your esophagus, stomach, pancreas, duodenum, liver, gallbladder, intestines, colon, you know, and that whole process is in those different separations, or I don't know if you know, you can't really call it separated, but in those faculties, the stomach being where it is, what it releases, what the pancreas releases, what the liver and the gallbladder release, with the what's produced in the intestines and the colon. All of that is in stages, and they have their doors. Like the duodenum itself is a door, so everything has doors basically, and so the doors are there for continuity. So you're like, okay, this is where the stomach begins, this is where the stomach ends, this is where the liver begins and the liver ends, and this is where large intestine, and you know, this is where it begins right here. It's all doors. and or windows, however you want to look at it. If you're looking at it from like a Microsoft kind of way, but because the body is just its embodiments, program law. It's just law. So the same way water has to sink and fire has to cling, it has to, or it wouldn't be fire and there wouldn't be water. It's the same thing with the body. So if you activate it sexually and you don't undergo the whole process of creation, then you have to go through the process of mourning and destruction, and it's inevitable. So I don't really want to play. I don't want to play that game no more. You know what I mean? Because game means sacrifice. So ultimately, the true you is what gets sacrificed. The clean energy is getting sacrificed and being converted into fear and fueling the false self and essentially separating the consciousness from the body. So I just feel like, again, it's either contentment or it's fear, and you just can't be in a relationship with someone that has a fear of breaking up with who they thought they were. They're gonna have a fear of breaking up with you, and then you're gonna be together out of fear instead of actually being together. You're not really together if it's fear is the. It's not really a common ground in a sense because it's an illusion. It's like just a common illusion, I guess, in a sense. So the fear is what separates you from yourselves and each other. And then your bodies are the only thing that are around each other. They're not really together though, because you're not really fully inhabiting your bodies, and so you're not really together. The bodies are just in close proximity, and it's not really a relationship. It's not real. It's just a proximity infatuation. Infatuation. That's probably about it. Or a paralysis. Proximity paralysis, I guess you could say. You know, if you're afraid to leave or afraid to get left, then you should leave or you should be left. And if not, then it's just gonna get worse. You know what I mean? And then the fear of abandonment just gonna continue to grow, and you're just gonna abandon opportunities repeatedly. So yeah. Yeah, and I just think that the lack of intimacy just turns into the whole issue with children. You got the people that aren't really intimate with themselves having all the kids, and then it makes it difficult for people that are developing or maturing in a way to where they can have intimacy. It creates more of a difficulty to have kids. Because your kids are just going to be with a bunch of people that are not really inhabiting their own body and they're not intimate with themselves. So the amount of trauma that's going to have to be navigated will be tough. I guess it will balance out if you're really fully yourself and fully inhabiting your body. Like you'll know, like okay, this is a trauma challenge, but it's just the constancy of it is draining. To constantly jump from one stress or one trauma to the next is draining. And I just feel like that's why it's wild. Like the people that do have kids, it's like it's a false control, which gets in the way of actual control. It's like this illusion of control. Like if I give them kids, I make them stay. Or if I give them kids, that means I can change things that happen in my life. And it's like, it doesn't change the things that happen in your life. You know what I mean? It just can change right now. The things that happen in your life still happen. And that's what it is. And that's what it always will be. You know what I mean? It is what it is. You can't, if you undid the past, then, if you totally undid the past, then you wouldn't have any means of, for perspective. It's there as a necessity, you know what I mean? As far as the linear experience is concerned, as far as the experience of time is concerned, the fourth dimension. Like, the past is a placeholder there. You know, it has to be there so that you can know what not to do, or if you did things correctly, you know what to do. So otherwise, it's like being born yesterday. So I mean, I just feel like a lot of it is that false control for the people that want to have kids, and then the people that don't want to have kids. I get it. Like, I feel like in my own experience, it's my definition of those experiences in general. Like, having a family, having a relationship, what learning is, all those experiences were so miserable that my definition of those things is so jaded that it kind of makes it impossible. Like, I looked at it like anything that resembled what my dad did is stupid because of the way my view of myself. Because I'd be like, well, if I do anything that's remotely similar to that, then I just create another me. And since I have this preconceived view of myself, then I reflect that back on him. Like, you're a dummy for having me, and I would be even dumber for having me. So I won't do it. And I just think that a lot of it is that. And I think some people definitely aren't supposed to have children. But at the same time, I think some people do reject the opportunities to actually experience real creation, because experiencing creation is experiencing something that doesn't die. Creation, or the creator, it resides in a place that doesn't die. And experiencing that is like a window into eternity. And then once you've experienced that, it puts everything else into perspective, the things that are not eternal. So then to care about certain things is impossible. So I feel like that's why a lot of people reject their potential of creative opportunities, because that would actually be a means to suicide the false self. And there's more loyalty to the false self still than to creation and reality. So yeah, I mean, so that's, I guess, like some introspective shit. But on a more extrospective shit, I guess, what we looking at right now? Oh yeah, one last point I guess I wanted to say, like, yeah, contentment, the etymology of contentment. It's like contentment means what, like, con comes from the Latin word cum, which means together, and then tent would be, it's like the same thing as I think it's not much different than like together, grab together, the mentality of being together. So, I just think that that oneness within, that perspective of the being connected within to connect with the one that's one with all, brings the contentment. And if you reject contentment, then you can I guess, as a consolation, if you could call it, I guess, as a cheap gift, you get the happiness of pursuit. You get to be, if you enjoy chasing, you get that, but then you get exhaustion as well. But now on an extrospective way of looking at life right now, I mean, I just see, like, the way things are going in the society that we got right now. Everything is swinging back more right of center, for on a political sense. And I think it's going to create a false confidence in the system again, which is probably more dangerous than bottoming out. Like, I think they moved the debates up this year to, I think the first one is June 27th and the second one is like July 7th or some shit. I forget. But I think they moved the debates up this year because they might. I mean, I've been saying that they're probably trying to swap Biden out. I think both candidates are trash. Don't get me wrong. I think they're both just puppets, just Zionist puppets. Um, if you're making me pick, I guess I'm not picking Biden. Um, I can't pick the guy that did the crime bill, but I do think they're both garbage, and I think that Trump winning has the danger. This is why the success of danger and failure is equal. Like the winning, the danger of Trump winning gives people confidence in a broken system, and also obviously I think it would, the media is gonna make it the separation even more crazy if Trump gets in. His best bet would be to pick Byron Donalds to be his vice president, because if they was to take Trump out somehow, that's what Biden's best decision was, to make Kamala his vice president. That's why they haven't impeached him, because you're getting something worse, So they like, fuck it, we can't, I'll put this bitch in here. You'll never take me out, because what you gonna do? You gonna put her in? So that was a perfect selection, honestly. That's the smartest thing his camp did, was put her in. So I think Biden, if he put Byron Donalds in, they really don't want Byron Donalds to be president. So I think he would probably be the best vice presidential pick. But I don't know. Trump's such a Zionist. He might not do that. He might do some dumb shit. But Byron Donalds will probably be his best VP pick. And I think that Biden will probably be swapped out before the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, because they already got there's going to be massive protests because I don't know if you guys seen it recently. There was massive protests in D.C. They put the non-scalable walls up around the White House and everything because of the Israel thing. So I think that Biden is done, and that's probably why they came down with the conviction on Hunter. I think Biden will just pardon him, though. If it comes down to it, I think he's going to pardon his son. I think the conviction means nothing. And it's like another ruse to make people think like, oh, the justice system, to give confidence in the justice system. Like, oh, look, they prosecuted Hunter too. So it's equal with Trump. And it's like, yeah, this is all a fucking charade. The whole thing's a charade. And I'm not saying that real problems don't happen from the charade, because that's what the media is there for, is to make you create real problems from the fake ones that they present to you. So, I think come July 11th, when the sentencing from Trump comes down, that'll tell you a lot. If they give him house arrest so he can't campaign, that'll tell you a lot. If they actually put him in prison, then they're definitely going to go with him. I think he'll definitely win the election. If they put Trump in there, then he just becomes Trumpavelli. Like if they try to put Trump in jail, he's Trumpavelli at that point. So I think no warden in the country would want Trump to be in their prison, because that would be pretty much a freak show and would cost mad money and to keep him secure in there. So that would be pretty impossible. So if they do put him on house arrest, maybe so he can't campaign, maybe they'll try to do it that way. But at this point, Biden is done. There's no confidence in Biden. He lost a lot of his extreme lefties to the Israel-Palestine conflict. So I think that they have to swap him out and go with probably Michelle Obama and Gavin Newsom. Michelle Obama as the president and Gavin Newsom as the vice president. The Democrats don't have anybody else that's even popular that rings bells in their ears. So I think that's probably the way that they would go. I mean, if they run with Biden, then they're just conceding, because that's a win for Trump. Just to let Biden run is a win. So I think they could just the ways it could go is like they let Biden run, and then they flagrantly steal it, which lets you know how aggressive the government's going to be in the coming years, or they just let Trump win, and then for the next 4 years there's going to be just the same bullshit with the media and constant separation to try to just keep us hurting each other and not liking each other instead of getting along. And so that's kind of how I think that's going to play out. I think from June 27th, from the first debate to July 11th, is just going to be stupid. And then by the Democratic National Convention, it'll get more reckless. Because again, the Palestinian protest is the new Black Lives Matter. And there's not that much vitriol towards Trump because he's not the president right now. So I think they could just be trying to, run Biden out of there, or they're just planning on cracking down in a way more aggressive way in the near future. So that's kind of where I think it is as far as politically. I mean, you've seen in France they're having a snap election because Macron, the president, he lost a bunch of seats in the parliament, so he wants to redo the election in July. And people have their thoughts and feelings about that, whether that's cool or not. I just think that either way, there's a groundswell of people going right of center because they're being pushed that way. Because the liberals got so far left that people in the center now are right. And you having such a split between city and suburbs and rural that it's just harder for people to work together. And you're going to have I feel like a massive, it's a race war at some level, but more so a religious war in the world, because you got an aging population of Europe as far as the Christians and Catholics. And then you got a third of the military age men or something like that now are immigrants. Most of them are Muslim. So like in the whole European bloc, I mean. And I just feel like that's just a setup for the next 10 or 20 years to create a new crusade type thing. There's a new crusade. A new religious war to separate people. And then China is in a place where they got such an aging population. All right, so you think of America, they got 300 million people. We say 150 million of them are adults. We say 50 million of those, 60 million of those are like boomers and older. And so you have an aging population that needs Social Security. They need to be taken care of. And if they don't, then the social contract pretty much breaks down because people can't take care of their parents. And they're going to have to leave opportunities in their own lives to take care of their parents. So it'll crunch society. And so that's what's going on in America. Now you think of China has 4 times the amount of population, and they have their boomers are in a greater mass. They make up a bigger amount of their population. So they're in a debt bubble. They have massive cities that are just empty. I think that's why everybody's kind of going for broke and positioning themselves for war, because they're going to use war as a means to collapse the current currency system, to make it totally digital and to ration things. I seen an article the other day in Germany, about Germany, how they were saying we're ready for the World War III by 2029, and they were saying we're gonna turn all the subways into bunkers, and then we'll ration food, make sure everybody gets at least one hot meal a day. And it's mainstream news for Germany. And so I think that's pretty much where things are going. You're going towards a more, just a controlled, everything being more controlled. So then people are going to have to make the most out of foraging and growing their own food, and just trying to develop something to weather these storms, because it's going to be periods here where there's just a lack of resources, a lack of flow, lack of knowledge, lack of I mean, it's already that, but even more so. And you're just gonna have to weather those storms. You have to have food stored up, things stored up to get through those periods. Maybe it's only a few weeks. Maybe it's a month. Maybe it's 6 months. Maybe you have no power for a month or 3 months. I mean, even if it's 2 weeks with no power, people will go crazy. So I think it's just better to be prepared for that. And I think that that's what's coming. And they're gonna use whatever boogeyman they want to use to blame the currency collapse and the issues that follow that after, on the war. And maybe after the war's over, there'll be another baby boom, or maybe it'll just be more of a crunch until we really, really fully bottom out. But I think politically, there's just more and more separation than ever before. And I mean, at least in this time, at least since World War II, there's more separation than ever. So, and the separation is always old versus young. If the old and the young get along, then the world has harmony. If the old and the young get along, then black and white get along, and man and woman get along. All of that follows old and young. If a man gets along with his son, and that's just universal, and women get along with their daughters, then it'll be, if there's respect there, then it'll be respect universally. But that has been eroded. So it's really the main relationship is old versus young, and that's kind of like the same thing as like God and Adam. Like you can look at it like the patriarch is like God, and the son is like Adam, and then that just perpetuates itself. If there's a good relationship there, then the world will see that universally. But if it's not, then we see what we see today. It's just a total breakdown of sanity. It's kind of where we at. So I'm gonna be doing this podcast later tonight. In about 3 hours, it'll be on the Patreon probably by midnight Germany time. So it's like 6 o'clock East Coast time, I think. 3 p.m. West Coast time. So it'll be on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. Thank you guys for your continued support, man. I'm going to see if we got any questions in the comments over the time I was talking. And then you guys can ask questions as you want. But this video will be on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. I mean, all in all, though, man, like, I just been kind of fucking kind of tired of being immersed in people again. I think it's kind of exhausting letting people have will in your life sometimes. I think it's I'm coming from a situation where I have a lot more opportunities for autonomy in my day-to-day, where I can control when I wake up, when I go to sleep, when I eat, when I do this. I don't have no lunch breaks that are like prescribed for me. I don't have any I don't have anybody telling me that I can't turn my whole property into a food garden. So those things, I have those opportunities there. So I think that I cannot really do this much longer. I think this is definitely my last year of it, and I feel like for a lot of people it's their last year. Like 2025, the real ID shit in Europe goes into effect, so coming to Europe will be more difficult. And I would just assume, like I said, they kind of set the standard. I think the rest of the world's going to follow. And you're going to, because like when I flew to Frankfurt from Texas, they scanned my face to get on the plane. They didn't even read the ticket. They just told me to scan my face. I was like, fuck, man, I can't do this no more. Like, this is the end of this. This is the last time I'm doing this shit. I don't want to, give up a bunch of images of this shit. No more. So, I think that, it'd be great if there was a massive blackout and a loss of data, and then everything would have to reboot. Kind of like that one movie, what was the one shit with Ryan Gosling, Blade Runner, the remake of Blade Runner, when they had the blackout before. He's like, we don't really have that many records from before the blackout. He was like a cop or a Blade Runner or whatever. That'd be great if something like that happens. But then after the blackout, it was a massive. The crackdown was even crazier, and then people got more destitute. And yeah, it's wild, man. I seen that movie Hereditary the other night too, and I think it's a pretty decent movie. Not the best movie I've seen, but it's basically about like this chick's grandma. She made these contracts spiritually, and they never really knew their grandma like on a deep level. Like it's like the same way I kind of feel like I don't really know my dad. I get on a like we could talk about like small talk and shit like that, but I don't really know him. Like and like if I asked him like, what was your last dream? Like he wouldn't give me an answer. He would try to deflect and talk about other shit. And I think that type of shit is really that's where there's just no intimacy there. There's nothing real there, and at least being exchanged. So like I'd be always wondering like what kind of contracts this motherfucker got, man? Like he don't even know about or things he don't want to talk about. And so the movie was talking about basically like the grandmama of the family, the matriarch. She died, and they looked through her books and stuff, and they started seeing like all these spiritual books about like incantations and everything and summoning demons and stuff. And then they're just like the mom got scared of it and she didn't look into it. And then little did she know later in the movie she didn't realize like the mom was actually a male demon that possessed a female body, and he had made like these contracts to where he would leap into the grandson, the mom's son. And so she like by the time she finds out, like, you know what I mean, I won't ruin the movie for y'all, but she's starting to figure it out, you know what I mean? Like, oh shit, like my mom, the grandma of the family, like she made all these contracts or whatever spiritually, and I didn't know these people, I didn't know this shit, that it was like a Fight Club type thing. It was a pretty decent movie. I think it was shot pretty well. Maybe not the best acting in the world, but it wasn't the worst. And it's called Hereditary. And that's not, you know, it's kind of how it is with people. You know, people have bloodline agreements, contracts that they don't even know, because when they were made, they was made in other languages. They was made in Latin or Hebrew, Arabic, different languages. Latin's usually the contract language though. And if you look at like things like Latin and if you look at cursive Latin and you flip it upside down, it looks like Arabic, or it doesn't really look much different than handwritten Sanskrit. I mean, it definitely looks like Arabic more than anything. I think that's why the connection between the Spanish Moors and Spain and the Moors in general, you know what I mean, and Europe being controlled by the Moors and the Moors speaking Arabic, because Arabic existed before Islam, well before, just like Hebrew or Eber existed before Israel was developed. So like it's the same thing, kind of, you know, where these languages kind of already existed. But they're at the Eber River in Spain too. That's why Spain's called Iberia, because it's Eber. But that's because all the Jews was in Spain, and then they came to the Americas in the 1400s, and that's why the whole thing about America being like this was a place for religious freedom. A lot of it was because a lot of the people there was Jews and Muslims. That's why you got the crescent moon on the flag of South Carolina and shit like that. A lot of America's Christians, I mean, there's a lot of Jews and Muslims that had to be crypto Jews and crypto Muslims, because Christianity and the Puritans and the Protestants were coming in and and the Catholics was forcing this shit to where if you wasn't getting down with the gang, you had to pay the price. So a lot of people are fucking, there are Jews but they don't know it because their great-great-grandfather, whatever, had to hide it. And then the communication system just broke down, so they don't even know that that's the bloodline they come from, and they don't know that they made agreements, contracts that are in their blood that they have to realize, and then they have to breach those contracts, manually by just developing a better communication system with themselves and becoming versed in those languages. That's why all of the fucking plants and all of the animals and all of the treaties in the world, they're generally old ones, generally all in Latin. And like I said, Latin, if you write it in cursive and you flip it upside down, it looks like Arabic. It's all coming, they're all one language really, but certain languages are used for different things, Like you always see like people doing sorcery and with Latin, and botany with Latin, and zoology with Latin, and then you're doing mathematics and geometry and algebra with Hebrew and Arabic. It is all language. Algebra itself is a language. Algebra is an Arabic word. It's an Arabic dude's name, algebra. But so basically, like, again, it's always boiling down to the communication systems. And then if you look at shit like Tao, the way Tao was written in ancient calligraphy, it looks just like the way Om is written in India. It's just a different arrangement of the same shapes. Kind of the same way how you got the cross and the crescent. The cross and the crescent symbols throughout Eurasia. It's all coming from one spot. And then it proliferated out. And then basically you can look at it like the limbs attack the heart or the head. So you look like the one. It's hard to separate because I look at the pineal gland like it's the heart eye. Like if you're seeing with your heart, you're seeing with your pineal. And so it's kind of hard to separate them. Or to separate anything, but just to communicate the metaphor, it's like there was a head, a nucleus of this experience, which was in the Americas. And then it proliferated out and it had, people made slight changes to it, remixed it. And then you look at it like the limbs started to attack the head. And because it's like an autoimmune response. The self-hate is an autoimmune disease. You know what I mean? It's a spiritual immunity or metaphysical immunity problem to attack yourself, to smoke, to suffocate yourself, to poison yourself. All of that, to have sex with the wrong person in the wrong way. All of that is self-hate. All of that is an autoimmune response. That's the body acting out because there's something, an invader within it. So it's in conflict with itself at this point. So I'm just saying though, like if you look at it though, you look at Asia, you look at the Shang dynasty. It was an autonomous. It wasn't really a dynasty. It was an autonomous zone. Just like how the Western American, the United States or whatever, that was an autonomous zone that got destroyed and obliterated, and that's why it's mostly uninhabitable desert. You look at a lot of China, is a lot of uninhabitable land. There's not a lot of farm. That's why a lot of the farmland is in the Americas or in the Netherlands and different places, because a lot of places on this earth that was autonomous had an implosion event. Something happened, whether you call it a meltdown or whatever. And so when you have a chicken with its head cut off, basically the head is cut off and the body's just running and attacking itself, attacking the head, breaking its legs and running around, punching itself. That's pretty much the world where it's at. And then now the world doesn't know where the head is. It doesn't know where shit stemmed from. So it's just, the template is all wrong. Now we continually trace the wrong template. The reason behind Gaza, they want to take over all of Palestine, run them out, and then push those 2 million people around the world. And those 2 million people are just going to be pissed off, rightfully so. And then they're going to radicalize in wherever areas of the world you put them in. You take 500,000 Gazans and put them in America, and they're just going to radicalize. And then they're going to create groups of militants that are going to go at the establishment, and it's going to separate the people on the ground level, and then the government can actually use that as an excuse, like, oh, we're being attacked, and then they'll just come down on the whole population. So they're using them like a powder keg. They're poking the bear. They're like pissing these people off, destroying their families, blowing them up, and so and then they're gonna say like, we'll ship you out of there. There's already what, like 1 million Gazans and Palestinians in fucking Jordan, like 1 million in Lebanon, 2 million in Egypt or some shit like that. Those people are all still there surrounding Israel. A lot of the ones that got ran out. But if you take these 2 million that's left in the Gaza Strip and push them out, and or at least 1 million of them, you're going to be pushing them into Europe and America, and they're just going to create terror cells. A lot of them, because they're already radicalized, and then they're going to be getting funded, and then they're going to be just like Obama funding ISIS to create a boogeyman, and then you use them as a means to crack down on populations, your own population. You know, whether it's like an event like 9/11 or whatever, any other kind of terror attack, they're just using it as a means to crack down on everybody. You know, there's plenty of Zionist Jews that just want to see more Palestinians dead, but they're just Yafathite Scythian puppets that think that they control shit, but they're only just creating a loop that destroys themselves, and they rather live in a loop of destruction than liberate themselves from it and restore order, because they have this vanity and this that comes with status. It's like, if you want a kingdom and then you destroy it to take it, you lost. And that's what they rather would do. They rather destroy the shit than anybody have it. So that's kind of what we're in. Trump is a Zionist puppet. His biggest supporter was Sheldon Adelson. His wife now is the after Sheldon died, she took over that lobby. But Trump's biggest lobby is the Israeli lobby. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Biden croaks. You know what I mean? Would not be surprised. At this point, I think whoever wins, we lose. It doesn't really make a difference. If Biden wins, obviously we lose. If Trump wins, it's not so obvious that we lost. But he's still a Zionist. He's still Israel first. You know what I mean? So I don't think that it's good either way. I mean, yeah, King Ferdinand, the black hand killed him. The blank hand, however you want to call it. You can talk about the Romanovs getting killed. All of that shit that was happening in the 19 teens. That sparked that First World War, that set up the First World War. I mean, that's all the same people. These same rogue puppets that are being used for this illusion of status. I don't know what you mean by the one with the cyber hack. I don't understand that. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to do another podcast tonight with my man O. It'll be on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. Thank you guys for listening and watching, man. This video will be up on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. And, yeah, that's about it, man. I'll post the highlights from week 1, the first game. And I got another game this Sunday in Augsburg. It's like 45 minutes outside of Munich. If anybody's in Germany and wants to see it, it'll be in Augsburg at 4 p.m. on Sunday. Supposed to be decent weather after noon on Sunday. So, yeah. If you want to come do that, we can, man. If you want to do some breath work or whatever, we can. Or if you're going to be in the city of Ulm, ULM, the city of Ulm, we can also do something. And, yeah, man, have a good whatever, morning, noon, or night, whatever's going on where you're at. Thank you, guys.